Well, it's day one of the National Rail strike and indeed the strike in London. Now, that said, 20% of trains are running. And my first observation is that this strike has had much less of an impact on our national life than it did back in 1989 and into the early 1990s. Why? Well, it's post-pandemic Britain. Lots of companies, lots of organisations have got used to the idea that people can work from home, albeit not, in my view, as efficiently. So yes, whilst millions have been inconvenienced, the impact has not been that huge. And you know what? It's Midsummer's Day, the weather's nice, and quite a few people have simply just taken the day off. Second observation, some snap polling coming out this evening from a couple of companies, which shows actually there's quite a significant number of people in the population have great sympathy for the rail unions. And of course, it's because everybody is feeling the pinch on the cost of living. Now, I asked the question last night, politically, who could these strikes hurt? And I thought back to the mid-70s when the trade union movement brought down Edward Heath's government. Arguably, 10 years later, Mrs. Thatcher, with her victory, kind of victory, against Arthur Scargill, she was emboldened by it. We know the Conservative Party position. They don't want to give in. They don't want to be seen to give in. They don't want Network Rail to give in, because they know if they give in to these unions, there'll be many, many more to come in the public sector, and perhaps actually that could lead on to the private sector. And wage inflation, once that disease of inflation has kicked in, wage inflation can worsen it and make it spiral. But what of the Labour Party? What of the opposition party? What of the party that was basically founded by the trade union movement, and interestingly, many of whose MPs are directly funded by the RMT? Well, Keir Starmer was pretty clear last night, issuing warnings, especially to front benchers, not to join picket lines today. Well, let's have a look today around the country at what credibility Keir Starmer has with his own party and indeed, I think, with the country. We'll start with Alex Sobel, Shadow Minister, Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and he was out joining a picket line on Tottenham Court Road. Navendu Mishra, Labour MP and indeed Whip for Stockport, said this treacherous government has underfunded and mismanaged our public transport network for more than a decade. As a proud trade unionist, I stand with all workers on our railway network who are taking industrial action to fight for their jobs and keep passengers safe. Lloyd Russell Moyle, who was here on the set with me last night, said solidarity to RMT union workers this morning, joined them at Waterloo, then jumped on a hire bike to Victoria. Diane Abbott, well, of course, I thought she'd be there somewhere, Hackney North and Stoke Newington, and she says, on the RMT picket line at the Seven Sisters Depot, brackets, but didn't tell Keir Starmer. Anwar Samwar, the leader of Scottish Labour at Edinburgh Waverley Station, solidarity with those on the picket lines. This is a crisis entirely of the government's making. The workers don't want strikes. The unions apparently don't want strikes. The public don't want strikes. They demand better. Dan Carden, Liverpool Walton, Zara Sultana, Coventry South, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Salford and Eccles, Richard Bergen, Leeds East. The list goes on and on and on. John McDonnell, who, of course, former Shadow Chancellor, Member of Parliament for Hayes and Harlington, said proud to join the RMT picket line this morning at West Ruislip in my borough. Solidarity to the RMT union. Kate Osborne, Jarrow and PPS to Northern Ireland Secretary, said on the picket line at Bromley, I'm a trade unionist, I will always stand on the side of the workers. Andy MacDonald, Middlesbrough, I'm proud to join the courageous RMT union rail workers on the picket line here in Middlesbrough. And a last-minute surprise. Out of retirement, the man himself, yes, King Arthur, Arthur Scargill, joining the picket lines too. Well, perhaps that's not as big a surprise as we all thought. So Keir Starmer is not in control of his own party. The Labour opposition officially can't tell you whether they support these strikes or don't support these strikes. And given that this is day one of a national strike, that could, if people listen to the RMT's General Secretary Mick Lynch, lead on to a general strike, given how important and serious that is. The question tonight I'm asking, is the Labour Party today a credible opposition? Give me your thoughts, Farage at gbnews.uk.